In the heart of the sun-blessed valley lay the village of Endale, where red dust painted the feet of its people and the trees whispered old secrets in the wind. Life here was simple, and so were its people, farmers, fishermen, craftsmen, and storytellers. Every evening, as the sun dipped low, the drums would begin their songs, and the fires would flicker with laughter, love, and memory. Among the people of Endale was a man named Makoma. A farmer by trade, Makoma was not wealthy, nor was he known for any great accomplishment. But he was honest. He had hands built for the earth and a heart too big for his own chest. He was a man of the soil, patient, steady, loyal. And above all, he was the childhood friend of Sephew, the richest man Endale had ever known. Sephew's rise had been the stuff of legend. 10 years ago, he was nothing but a barefoot hunter's son with a single-torn tunic. Then, one season, he left the village for a pilgrimage to the deep western forest. He returned a year later with bags of gold, new clothes, and a wife unlike any woman the village had ever seen. Her name was Nelik. Tall, graceful, skin like rain-polished stone, eyes as deep as a night sky without stars. She walked like smoke, soft, slow, always moving, but never rushed. And her smile? It was warm, but never quite reached her eyes. No one knew where Sephew had found her. No one dared ask. What mattered was that after Nelly came into his life, Sephew's fortune exploded, his yam fields grew twice as large, his goats gave birth in double, his hut became a mansion with stone walls and iron doors. His name became legend, whispered in envy and awe. But legends do not last forever. One morning, the village awoke to the sound of sorrow. Sephew was dead. He had gone to bed as usual the night before. He had eaten stew. He had spoken to Nelik about the new grain storage. Nothing strange. Nothing off. But by morning, he lay cold and still, a light frown on his face, as if he'd seen something in his dreams that refused to let him wake. The entire village gathered for the burial. Women wailed. Men beat their chests in grief. Children clung to their mothers, not understanding why the sun seemed dimmer that day. Only one person didn't cry. Nelik. She stood beside the grave dressed in pure white, her eyes dry, her face unreadable. Her hands were folded tightly, and not a single tear escaped her. Some said she had cried through the night and had none left to give. Others whispered that she didn't cry because she already knew he was going to die. Makoma stood quietly near the tree line, arms crossed, lips tight. His heart ached, for his friend, for the village, and oddly, for Nelik. But more than anything, he was curious. Weeks passed. Sephew was gone, and yet, something lingered in the wind. A tension. A shadow. Makoma visited Nelik out of duty at first. Bringing food. Offering condolences. Checking in. But the visits grew longer. He didn't know why. He wasn't looking for love. Yet, every time he saw her, something pulled him in. Her voice. Her calm. Her mystery. And slowly, his mind wandered to the blessings Sephew once had. One morning, as he walked back from Nelik's compound, Makoma said to himself. Maybe it was not gold Sephew found in the forest, but her. Maybe she was the treasure. He stopped walking. A thought entered his mind, quiet at first, then louder. What if she could bring those blessings to me? The idea was wild. Mad bold. And yet, that afternoon, Makoma returned. Nelik was sitting outside her home, weaving silently. Makoma approached her slowly. Carefully. He didn't speak in riddles. Didn't bring gifts. Didn't hide his intention. Nelik, he said. I want to honor Sephew by honoring you. You were his partner. You are still a queen in this village. And if you would allow it, I would be honored to call you my wife. Nelik looked up. Her expression didn't change. Her fingers continued to weave. The only sound was the birds in the trees and the soft rustle of wind. Then she said, "This journey you ask for, are you prepared for all of it?" Makoma straightened. "I have nothing to fear." She smiled, not with joy, but with something deeper. "Then let it be done." The village whispered for days. A simple farmer marrying the widow of a wealthy man. Unheard of. But no one dared speak against it aloud. For though Sefi was gone, Nelik's presence still demanded silence. A week later, they were wed. A small ceremony. No drums. No dancing. And that night, Nelik spoke. "Ask me for anything, my husband. One thing. And it shall be yours by sunrise." Makoma blinked. "Anything. Anything." His heart pounded. His thoughts raced. A strong harvest," he said. "Let the land be kind to me this season." Nelik nodded once. Then they went to sleep. At sunrise, Makoma stepped outside and gasped. His yam fields, once dry and cracked, were now thick with green. Fat tubers peeked out from the soil. His banana trees were heavy with golden fruit. His goats, once thin, stood tall with swollen bellies. The neighbors ran to his fence, eyes wide. What happened? Makoma had no answer. Only Nelik stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching him. She did not smile. Days turned into weeks. Makoma's wealth grew fast, too fast. Traders offered him the best prices. Storms skipped over his fields. A broken tool repaired itself overnight. And yet, at night, as Makoma lay in bed, he would hear Nelik whispering. Soft words. In a language he didn't know. Always when she thought he was asleep. Sometimes, he caught a name, Sefio. One night, he turned to her gently. "Who are you speaking to?" he asked. Nelik didn't flinch. She ran her fingers across his chest. "Old memories," she said. "Sometimes, they knock louder than sleep." Makoma nodded. But his heart whispered. That voice, it's not just for the past. Something else listens. Something's still here. And then, something strange happened. A boy in the village, young, clumsy, curious, was playing near Makoma's compound one night. He peeked through the crack of the window to see if the stories were true. He ran back home screaming. He told his mother what he saw. Makoma's wife, she talks to a shadow. And it talks back. The whispers began again. Just like when Sefi died. And Makoma. He stopped sleeping easily. Because no matter how full his home was, no matter how rich his fields became, something in the silence began to feel like a warning. A blessing that was too fast. A voice in the dark that wasn't his. They say a man's home is his kingdom. But for Makoma, his new home felt more like a dream carved from stone, and slowly, the dream was whispering back. Only days after his marriage to Nelik, his world changed. The thatched hut he'd built with his father's hands, the one that leaked during the rainy season and creaked in the wind, was gone. In its place stood a tall, firm stone house, cool even under the burning sun, with smooth floors and hand-carved wooden doors. The villagers said it looked like a chief's house. The kind they'd only ever seen in the big cities beyond the hills. But Makoma didn't hire any builders. He didn't lay a single brick. He only mentioned, casually, over dinner, that the roof had started leaking again. And the next morning, the house stood there. Finished. Perfect. Waiting. Nelik, of course, said nothing. The strangeness didn't stop there. Makoma, being a practical man, decided that if such gifts were being given, he might as well lean into them. Good seeds, he muttered to himself one evening. Something to make the ground yield sweeter maize. The next day, a bundle of golden maize seeds appeared on the doorstep. He hadn't bought them. No one delivered them. There was no note. Just a smooth black cloth bundle tied with red thread, and inside, the finest seeds he had ever seen. Plump, glowing, almost warm to the touch. He hesitated for a moment. Then planted them. Ear of corn, and the land obeyed. The crop shot up faster than anything he'd ever seen. By the second week, the stalks were taller than a man. By the third, the ears of maize had grown fat and golden, shimmering in the sun like sunlight had been poured directly into them. Traders from neighboring villages came running. Makoma was called blessed by the earth, son of abundance, even chief of fortune. And yet, Makoma could not explain how it all came to be. Pot of food, the kitchen that never cooked. But the most unsettling change, the one that pricked at his spine each morning, was Nelik herself. She never went to the market. Not once. She never carried a basket. Never haggled for onions. Never even left a shopping list. And yet, their kitchen was always full. Fresh fish. Boiled yam. Spiced rice. Pepper soup with meat so tender it melted before it reached your teeth. Makoma would ask, "Where did you get the goat meat?" And Nelik would only smile, tilt her head, and say, "You're still hungry." One night, after eating more than he should have, Makoma watched her from behind the curtain. She moved through the kitchen without lighting a fire. Her hands hovered over the cooking pot. And then, food appeared. Not cooked. Not placed. Appeared. Makoma's heart began to drum. But he didn't speak. Snake dreams in the dark. Then came the dreams. At first, they were soft. Whispery. Almost nothing. But soon, they turned vivid, too real to forget. Makoma would find himself lying on the floor of their stone house, unable to move. And above him, coiled along the ceiling beams, was a massive serpent, its eyes like liquid gold, its tongue flickering out his name. Makoma. Its voice was not angry. It was hungry. Makoma would wake drenched in sweat, heart pounding, breath shallow. He began sleeping with his staff beside the bed. Nelik never asked why. God, the animals knew first. The first real sign came from the goats. Makoma had raised goats all his life. They were loyal, familiar creatures, always the first to greet him in the morning. But after Nelik moved in, they avoided the front of the house. They bleated nervously when she stepped outside. The young ones would run in the opposite direction. One morning, a small white goat, a gift from Makoma's late uncle, collapsed and died without a sound, its eyes wide and glassy, its body strangely cold. Makoma buried it quietly. But something inside him shifted. Older adult grandfather Tawa's warning. Desperate for answers, Makoma visited Grandfather Tawa, the village elder who lived on the edge of the tamarind grove. Tawa was nearly blind, but his ears could hear through time. He sat beside his fire, sipping bitter tea when Makoma approached. "I hear your house has no roof leaks anymore," Tawa said without turning his head. Makoma sat in silence. "I hear your maize grows like it's trying to escape the ground. And your goats run from your bride." Makoma said nothing. Tawa finally turned to him, his cloudy eyes staring straight through Makoma's soul. Then he spoke in a slow, careful voice. "Blessings that arrive without sweat might feed you once, then take your breath." Makoma blinked. "What does that mean?" Tawa sipped his tea. "Means what it means," he said. And then waved him away. Snake eyes in the water. Makoma returned home restless, his thoughts heavy with Tawa's words. He walked to the river to clear his mind. The air was quiet. No birds. No frogs. Even the insects had gone still. He knelt by the edge of the water, cupped his hands, and took a drink. Then paused. Because staring back at him, not just his own reflection, was a second pair of eyes. Golden. Slit-like. Watching. He blinked. They were gone. He stumbled backward, nearly falling. Thought ballooned the question he didn't want to ask. That night, Makoma couldn't eat. Nelik set a steaming bowl in front of him. Spice stew, soft yam, pepper-sweet plantain. But he pushed the plate away. She watched him carefully. You're not hungry. Makoma cleared his throat. Do you remember your dreams? Nelik smiled faintly. Of course. Don't you? He hesitated. What do you see in them? He asked. She placed her hands gently on the table. Things that happened, and things that will. Makoma's heart began to pound. Like what? She leaned closer, her voice like smoke. Like men who ask too many questions, and never wake up again. Makoma didn't sleep that night. He lay awake, eyes fixed on the ceiling. Waiting for the hiss. The skies that night were angry. Wind howled like a wounded animal, and thunder rolled over Endale like war drums. Rain slapped rooftops, and the great tree at the center of the village bent low, as if it too had secrets to keep. Makoma lay in bed, but sleep stayed far from him. Nelik was beside him, breathing slow and steady. Too steady. As if she were mimicking sleep, not living in it. Then he heard it. Hisses. Soft. Elongated. Not the wind. Not a snake. Something between. He sat up. The sound came again, from behind the house. His heart thumped like a talking drum. He reached for his staff, the one carved by his grandfather, and rose from the bed. He stepped out barefoot into the rain. The cold slapped his skin, but the fear burned hotter. Lightning flashed, and in that blink of brightness, he saw the shed. The old storage hut behind the house. They never used it. Nelik always said it was too cluttered with webs. But tonight, light spilled from the cracks in the wood, golden and unnatural. Makoma moved silently. He crept to the side and peeked through a hole in the wall. And what he saw froze his blood. Snake half woman, half something else. Nelik stood in the center of the hut. But she was changing. Her back rippled. Her arms stretched. Her feet began to fuse together. From her waist down, her skin shimmered with scales, emerald green and obsidian black, glistening like oil in moonlight. Her lower half had become a massive serpent tail, coiled beneath her like a throne. She was whispering in a voice not her own. Not loud, but ancient. Deep. It wasn't a prayer. It wasn't a chant. It was a conversation. And though Makoma couldn't see who she spoke to, he felt it, a presence. Something unseen, but listening. She spoke in a language he'd never heard. But he heard one word repeated. Makoma. Makoma. Then she raised her arms, and the light in the hut grew blinding. Makoma stumbled backward, nearly falling. The rain masked his gasp. He ran back into the house, into the bed, into stillness. Moments later, the door creaked softly. Nelik entered, her skin dry. Her robe clean. Her step silent. She slipped beneath the blanket and curled beside him. And whispered. You're cold. Makoma didn't answer. He didn't sleep that night. The morning lie. At sunrise, Makoma sat at the table, staring at a bowl of porridge. Nelik brought roasted plantains and spiced tea. She hummed softly, an old village tune, off-key but sweet. He looked at her carefully. Her eyes looked normal. Her hands looked normal. Her smile looked real. But he knew. He had seen. And she had not seen him. Did you go out last night? He asked casually. She raised a brow. In that storm. Of course not. There was light in the shed, he said, watching her reaction. She sipped her tea, calm as a moonlit lake. Maybe lightning. You worry too much. Makoma didn't push further. But something inside him broke the peace of ignorance. Shinto shrine, the shrine of the old gods. That afternoon, Makoma told Nelik he was visiting his cousin. He lied. Instead, he took the long path through the whispering grasslands, past the baobab hills, to the forgotten shrine of the old gods. Few dared go there anymore. But Madame Ulamo, the keeper, was still alive. A small woman with white eyes and silver hair braided like river vines. She lived alone, surrounded by dried herbs, bones, feathers, and statues with no names. She saw him coming. You've seen the truth, she said before he could speak. Makoma bowed his head. I didn't mean to. I only wanted blessings. Ulamo's mouth carved into something that was not a smile. And now you've eaten her offering. Makoma's head snapped up. What do you mean? Ulamo walked to a stone slab, dipped a finger into red clay, and began to draw. She is not a woman, Makoma. Not by blood. Not by soul. You've married a spirit bride. Her body is human, yes. But her spirit, her true form, belongs to the old forest. She pointed to the drawing. It was a serpent curled around the house, fangs sunk into its foundation. Sephew made a deal. Long ago. Wealth, power, status, for as long as he could feed her. With gifts. With secrets. With sacrifices. Makoma's throat dried. Sephew, he fed her. Ulemo nodded. Until he couldn't anymore. Makoma felt by rise in his chest. And now me. She chose you. When you mourned him, she watched you. She whispered your name. She waited. Makoma whispered, what happens if I leave? Ulemo looked at him with eyes that had seen generations. You can walk away from a house. You can walk away from a woman. But you cannot walk away from a pact, especially when you didn't even know you made one. Wilted flower the choice. Makoma returned home at dusk. The sky was purple. The wind quiet. Nelly greeted him with a kiss on the cheek. Did your cousin feed you? She asked playfully. Makoma didn't answer. He stood in the doorway of their stone house and looked inside. At the gold, the fine cloth, the sweet-smelling food, the treasures stacked like stories untold. It was all there. And suddenly, it all felt heavy. He looked at Nelik and asked, softly. If I asked to leave, what would you say? She turned to him slowly. Her face didn't change. But her voice was colder than the wind through grave grass. I would say, the pact is sealed. You are the house now. And the house must not fall. She turned back inside. Makoma stood there. Frozen. Because now he understood. To ask was to lose it all. To stay was to lose himself. And the gift he had been given was no gift at all. It was a fire. One that burned slowly. From the inside. Makoma had always thought fear was loud. Like the roar of a lion. Or the crack of thunder. Or the shout of a man falling from a tree. But that night, as he stood before Nelik in their silent stone house, he learned a different kind of fear, the kind that whispers. He had reached his limit. The food that appeared out of nowhere. The gold coins in drawers he never filled. The dreams of hissing voices and golden eyes. The goat that bled dry without a wound. The children in the village who cried whenever Nelik passed. And the shed. That old wooden shed. He had seen too much. And now, he wanted answers. Real ones. Speaking had the confrontation. Nelik, he said, standing firm. I need to know. No riddles. No games. She looked up from the bowl of steaming broth she was stirring. Her face was calm. Always calm. Too calm. "Know what?" she asked. "What you are," he said. "I saw you. In the shed." Her hand froze mid-stir. "And," she said softly, "I know you're not just a woman. I know there's something else. I don't know how, or why, but I know." Nelik turned fully toward him now. The flames in the heart flickered. Then, she spoke. "I am what feeds you. I am what built this house, filled this pot, sweetened your land. I am not your wife. I am your pact." Makoma's breath caught in his throat. "What does that mean?" he whispered. She stepped forward, her eyes dark pools of night. "I serve one man at a time," she said. Sefiu was the last. When he died, the bond moved. Moved. To you. Makoma stumbled back a step. "But I never agreed to any bond." She tilted her head. "You took the gift. You slept in the house. You ate what I prepared. You made a wish the first night you married me. That was enough. Full moon, the truth of the full moon. Every full moon," she continued, "a sacrifice is required. Not always blood. Sometimes memory. Sometimes silence. Sometimes something smaller." Sefiu gave what was needed. Until the day he didn't. Makoma's skin crawled. "What happens if I don't give the sacrifice?" Nelik's smile returned, gentle, terrifying. "Then the serpent eats what it is owed." Makoma turned away, heart racing. "You're mad," he whispered. "This is madness." "You can leave," she said behind him. He stopped. Turned. "But you won't get far." Person running the flight to the hills. Makoma didn't sleep. He waited until the middle of the night. Then, while Nelik seemed to rest, he crept out of the stone house with nothing but a satchel and a prayer in his mouth. He ran. Through the thick grass, over the dried riverbed, past the whispering tree groves where children were told not to wander. He ran until the ground no longer knew his name. By dawn, he reached the neighboring village of Matanda, where no one knew his face or story. He found a kind couple who let him rest in a spare room. He collapsed on a woven mat, whispering thanks to any god that would hear him. Finally, he thought, he had escaped. But dreams don't care about borders. And owls do not care for distance. But the awakening. Makoma awoke the next morning, to stone floors. The smell of burning frankincense. The soft sound of stew bubbling. And a voice, soft, right beside his ear. "You didn't really think you could run from me, did you?" His eyes flew open. He was back in his bed. In his house. And beside him, lay Nelik. Her eyes glowed faint gold, not bright, not threatening, just glowing. Like warm coals. She gently caressed his cheek. "The pact does not break. Not by running. Not by fear." Makoma sat up quickly. His voice cracked. How did you?" "I didn't bring you," she said, rising slowly. "The contract did. You belong to it now. And until the sacrifice is made, the thread won't let go." Makoma stood, shaking. "I didn't ask for this." "You wished for more," she said. "I didn't know the cost." "Neither did Sefiu," she replied. "And still, he paid." Via the realization. Makoma staggered to the door, flung it open, and looked out over the field. The land still bloomed. Birds still sang. But everything felt different now, like he was standing on a stage built over a pit, and something ancient was watching from beneath the boards. He walked to the shed. This time, he opened it. Inside, empty. But the air hummed. Like something had just left, or was waiting to return. On the wall, scratched deep into the wood, were words in a language he couldn't read. But somehow, he understood them. What you take in greed, you must return in fear. He closed the shed, turned, and saw Nelik standing silently in the doorway. She was smiling. Not wickedly. Not warmly. Just smiling. The full moon is 2 nights away, she said. Prepare your heart. Makoma went inside. He didn't eat. He didn't speak. He sat with his staff, staring at the hearth, the fire burning low. Because now, he finally understood. This wasn't a gift. It wasn't love. It was a contract. And the serpent never forgets to collect. The full moon arrived like a glowing moon in the sky. Big. Bright. Unblinking. Its light poured over the village of Endale like cold milk, beautiful to look at, but curdling in the heart. And in the stone house at the edge of the tamarind grove, Makoma sat alone. He hadn't spoken to Nelik all day. He hadn't eaten. He hadn't prayed. Because something in him knew, tonight was the end. Candor the final refuser. That morning, she had placed a single clay bowl in front of him. It held water, salt, and 3 long black feathers. He stared at it. What is this? He asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she said, tonight, the pact awakens. What you give will decide what stays. Makoma stood. I have nothing left to give. Nelik tilted her head. You have breath. He stepped back. No. I didn't agree to this. I never knew. But you wanted, didn't you? She said. You wished. You received. Now the debt is due. Makoma picked up the clay bowl and smashed it on the ground. I refuse. Nelik didn't flinch. She turned and walked away. Then so it shall be. Full moon the night of the moon. The moon rose fully at midnight. The wind died. The crickets stopped. Even the fire in the hearth burned lower than it should have. Makoma sat on the edge of his bed, clutching his staff, eyes fixed on the doorway. Waiting. Listening. Then he heard it. Not outside. Inside. From the walls. From the floor. From the air itself. A long, low hiss that seemed to rise from the stones of the house like smoke. He stood. Backed into a corner. The door creaked open. Snake the serpent revealed. Nelik was no longer a woman. She slithered in slowly, her form towering, long and thick as a tree trunk, her skin covered in emerald and obsidian scales, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Her eyes were 2 golden flames, flickering with memory and malice. Her voice echoed, not from her mouth alone, but from every corner of the room. The pact was sealed. You broke the offering. You must now be the offering. Makoma fell to his knees. I didn't know, he whispered. But you ate, she replied. You asked. You took. The pact does not care what you knew. He raised his staff. She didn't flinch. He shouted. Please. Spare me, I'll leave. I'll give everything back. Her body coiled higher, blocking the doorway, the windows, the very light. There is no back. Makoma's voice broke. I'm not Sephu. No, she said. Sephu fed me. You denied me. And now I hunger. Coughing the strike. In a flash, the serpent lunged. Makoma screamed, but only once. Her fangs found his chest. His eyes rolled back. And in one shuddering breath, Makoma fell, eyes wide, mouth open, heart still. The pact had claimed its price. And the house fell silent. Sunrise over mountains, the village wakes. Days passed. No smoke from Makoma's chimney. No footsteps to the market. The stone house stood still, silent as a tomb. Children dared each other to knock. None did. Until the stench came. The elders gathered the strongest men and approached the house. They broke the door. Inside, they found Makoma's body, cold, grey, and still sitting upright, hands clenched around his staff. No sign of Nelik. No blood. No sound. Just emptiness. The truth from Ulemo. The villagers, panicked and confused, rushed to the only one who might know, the shrine-keeper Madam Ulemo. She listened as they spoke. Then closed her eyes. And when she opened them, her voice trembled with old, terrible truth. Makoma desired what was never his. He tasted fruit from a tree rooted in spirit. Nelik was no widow. She was a guardian. A giver of riches, yes, but also a taker of men. The people gasped. Sephew made a deal. He fed the serpent spirit each full moon, until he faltered. When Makoma married her, the bond passed on. But unlike Sephew, he refused to pay. She looked around, eyes sharp as a hawk's. And the serpent does not like to be denied. Speaking heard the tale that lives forever. From that day on, no one approached the stone house again. Grass grew tall around it. Ivy crawled up the walls. Snakes nested in the cracks. And every full moon, villagers swore they heard whispers from the shed. Hissing, faint laughter, and the soft voice of a woman singing a lullaby that no child had ever learned. But the story didn't die. It was told again and again. By firesides. In schools. At weddings. In the fields. A tale not just of Makoma, but of what happens when greed blinds love, and desire deafens wisdom. And it always ends the same way. Do not seek the blessings of others with jealous hearts. For what sweetens their hands may poison yours. Green Square, the end.